Today I look at an M. Night Shyamalan movie where the biggest twist about it is how good it is. Hello everyone and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at the 2015 M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Visit. My experience with this movie was trepidatious. I remember when I watched the trailer to this, I was very, very intrigued. This had grabbed me with the atmosphere and the tone that it was presenting, the kids going to their grandparents and these arbitrary but perhaps sinister set of rules. And I was like, okay, you got me, movie, I want to watch you. And then the trailer continued and I saw directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and oh dear. Oh dear. I am actually a fan of his work. I love The Sixth Sense. Unbreakable is one of my favorite films of, certainly of any superhero genre. But I think it's fair to say that prior to The Visit, we had gotten burned plenty of times. The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening. Let's not forget, or let's do forget, The Last Airbender. So when I saw that he was making this, okay. And then I watched the movie, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I recently rewatched it for the 24-hour movie marathon that I hosted. But I think it still held true, and it held solid, and it was actually a pretty remarkably good movie. And I think one of the best things about it is something that I will go over in the categories, which will be now. So, as always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. Now, the plot of this one follows 2 adolescent youths, teenagers by the name of Becca and Tyler, that are off to visit their grandparents for the first time ever. Their mother had a falling out with their grandparents, with her parents, before they were even born, and at least a tentative truce has been called enough that the mother's opinion on it is, if you want to go visit them, I will allow that. I will, put you on a train and off you go, but I don't want to be involved. I'm not ready for that just yet. So they do. Off they go. They are on a train, and they meet up with their grandparents at the stop. They take them back to the house, and the grandparents are very nice, very pleasant, and they're seeing artifacts that their mother talked about from her childhood, the old clock in the hallway, things like that. And their grandparents are starting to go over a set of rules that they have. So, I think principally it was, we're old, we go to bed late, early. So, every lights out is at 9:30, and don't leave your room past 9:30. And for me, that was a bit of a chilling, sinister feel to it. Usually it's, lights out by 9:30, don't go wandering. Something. It was just very, very direct and very specific. And you had to wonder, well, what that was about. And I'm going to give something away here. It's not a spoiler. I don't do spoilers on my reviews, but this movie does not have a twist. And the only reason that I really bring that up is I gave the plot a 19 out of 25, and one of the larger reasons for that is, even though this doesn't have a twist, I would say that it does have a grander plot reveal. A lot of the movie, you're wondering what in the world is happening. The grandparents start behaving very erratically, not quite dangerously, but in an unnerving fashion. And so a good portion of the movie is spent trying to figure out what in the world is actually going on. And the reveal of that, while not being a twist, was a surprising one. And one of the reasons I love this plot so much was it was so carefully crafted in revealing just enough to make things unnerving without giving away what the reveal actually is. And I think that was an achievement both from, altogether, from the screenwriting process, the directing process, the editing process. It was really masterfully crafted, and it's one of the things I love most about this movie. Not to mention the characters were actually really well developed. The two teenagers were not, as long as Tyler wasn't rapping, they were not irritating. They were well fleshed out characters. The grandparents did a remarkable job, both in their neutral, happy state, and when things start kind of taking a little bit of a turn and they're acting erratically, they did a magnificent job with that. Altogether, I was very impressed with this movie and with this plot. The intent, I gave a 23 out of 25. I think this intended to be a scary movie that, I don't know, you know what? I don't know so much about scary as I think unnerving is probably the better word. I mean, it did have some scary moments to it, and I enjoyed it as a horror film, but I think one of the things that this movie captured more than anything else was that deep-seated sense of unnerving that I think many of us have experienced in our youth, where if we are put in charge, in the charge of another adult when we were younger, that sense of, I mean, even if it was grandparents, especially if you weren't that familiar with your grandparents, but if you went to stay with an aunt or somebody that you're just somewhat unfamiliar with, but your parents are saying they're responsible and we're trusting them, so you should trust them too. Now you're in an environment with different rules, different sounds, different smells. The everything about it. When they serve dinner, it's on plates that you're not used to. That sense of unfamiliarity can cause a real sense of unnerving, trepidation, and even fear. And this movie captured that really, really well, while also ramping up that maybe those fears are not terribly unfounded and rolling with that. So all of that, I think, is what the movie intended, and I thought it did it wonderfully. What it set out to do, it achieved. So yeah, 23 out of 25 on the intent. Really, really loved it. The acting, again, the teenagers were really, really not irritating, which is surprising in a horror movie. They played it really, really well and believable, while also being intelligent and trying to make the best out of a potentially bad situation. Hopeful, I think, is a good word, especially for the Becca character. The reason that this movie is in documentary form kind of thing, or at least found footage form, is because that's how she's wanting to do this. Is she has the idea that she wants to be a documentary filmmaker, so she's documenting this process, which to her is an interesting story arc in her life, and she wants to capture that. So there are moments in which, she will sit the grandparents down, just one-on-one with her and discuss elements to that. And I thought that those moments in particular were really shining elements of this movie in terms of acting. The grandmother in particular, Deanna Dunnigan, was phenomenal in the interviews that the Becca character had with her. She will be happy and, happy to talk to her granddaughter and so forth. But then, as Becca was trying to flesh things out as a documentary filmmaker would about the nature of the falling out between her and her daughter, the shift, the turning on a dime, and almost to a dangerous degree that the Nana character went through was just some fantastic acting. Altogether, great performances really rounded this movie out. 19 out of 25 for that. And for the technical, there were really not a whole lot of effects to be had. It was mostly camera work, sound design, lighting, other technical achievements. But I think more than anything else, it was editing that really, really made this movie stand out and be stellar. This movie would be nothing if it weren't for the creepiness factor to it, and it knew when to dial that down, and it knew when to really, really ramp it up. While not necessarily hitting play on the action button, things aren't necessarily happening in any actionable sense, but it knew how to take that, and just with editing and sound design, it knew how to take that tone, shift it to something menacing, and draw that out. And that was really, really, really well done. So I gave the technical a 20 out of 25 points, which gives us a total score of 81 out of 100 points. For an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I was really pleasantly surprised that there was no twist. There was only just a grander reveal. I think that's actually one of the elements that I think that he would, as far as his previous films, the ones that I mentioned that burned us, in my opinion at least, I think that one of the bigger problems with that is he has these great concepts, and because of The Sixth Sense, I think that he kind of got shoehorned into you need to have a twist. That's your style. That's your mark. That's that's what your brand is, M. Night Shyamalan. And I think that the concepts that he had, albeit interesting, didn't necessarily lend themselves to have a twist. And I mean, if you're trying to work a twist into your movie, that affects everything that precedes it. And I'm glad that he broke away from that with The Visit. I'm glad that he just decided to make a movie on its own that doesn't try to live up to any particular past or any sort of twist like that. So kudos all around. I really do recommend this one. This was a great, not necessarily scary, although it has some good scares, but just a great, creepy movie that'll keep you on the edge of your seat all the way to the end. Very highly recommend The Visit. So thank you very much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.